The kitchen was hot and cramped, filled with the chaos of Thanksgiving preparations. Through the swinging door, I could hear laughter from the dining room where my stepfamily sat in comfort, drinking expensive wine and enjoying the holiday. Meanwhile, I perched on a wooden stool in the corner, exactly where they thought I belonged. "Madeleine," my stepsister Victoria called through the door. "We need more wine, and try not to embarrass yourself this time." I gripped the wine bottle tightly, remembering how at last year's Thanksgiving, they'd mocked me for not knowing the proper way to present wine. Of course, they had no idea that I now owned one of the largest wine distributors on the West Coast. "Coming," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. Let them think I was still the same awkward girl they tormented since my father's death 10 years ago. They'd learn the truth soon enough. My stepmother, Eleanor, had made it clear from the beginning that I wasn't really part of the family. When she married my father, she already had 2 perfect daughters, Victoria and Sophia. They were everything I wasn't: polished, sophisticated, and most importantly to Eleanor, connected to the right social circles. I was just the awkward bookworm who spent too much time studying and not enough time learning to be proper. When my father died unexpectedly during my first year of college, Eleanor showed her true colors. She cut off my tuition, claiming the family needed to tighten its belt. Victoria and Sophia continued attending their expensive private universities while I was forced to drop out. But what Eleanor never understood was that she had actually done me a favor. With no money for tuition, I took a job as a junior analyst at a small investment firm. While my stepsisters partied their way through college, I worked 16-hour days, learning everything I could about business, finance, and the art of the deal. My boss, Margaret Chen, became the mentor I desperately needed. She saw something in me that my stepfamily had always missed: raw talent and relentless determination. "They think putting you in the kitchen makes you less," she told me once. "But sometimes the kitchen is where you learn the most valuable lessons about how things really work." She was right. Over the years, I watched from the kitchen as Eleanor's new husband, Charles Burton, bragged about his business deals. I listened as he discussed acquisitions and mergers, never realizing that the quiet stepdaughter serving his drinks was absorbing every detail. Charles owned Burton Enterprises, a mid-sized conglomerate that he'd built through aggressive acquisitions. He was proud of his empire, but I could see the cracks forming. He was too focused on appearances, too concerned with impressing his society friends to notice the changes in the market. By the time I was 28, I had started my own investment firm, Phoenix Capital. The name was my private joke, rising from the ashes of the life my stepmother had tried to destroy. We specialized in acquiring undervalued companies and turning them around. None of them knew, of course. To my stepfamily, I was still just Madeline, the awkward one who worked some office job and lived in a cute little apartment. They had no idea that my cute apartment was actually the penthouse of a building I owned, or that my office job involved managing billions in assets. "Madeleine," Sophia's sharp voice cut through my thoughts. "What's taking so long with that wine?" I grabbed the bottle, a $500 Bordeaux from my own vineyard, and pushed through the door into the dining room. Charles sat at the head of the table, his face slightly flushed from too much drinking. Eleanor perched beside him, elegant and cold as always. Victoria and Sophia flanked them like perfectly matched bookends. Finally, Victoria sneered as I poured the wine. "Though I'm surprised you can afford such a nice bottle on your salary." If she only knew. The acquisition papers for Burton Enterprises were sitting in my office downtown. waiting to be announced tomorrow morning. Charles had been so busy trying to maintain appearances that he hadn't noticed his company was hemorrhaging money. His bankers had approached Phoenix Capital 3 months ago, desperately seeking a buyer before everything collapsed. "Oh, I manage," I said quietly, retreating back to my kitchen corner. Charles launched into another boastful story about his latest deal. I listened with carefully hidden amusement, knowing that in less than 24 hours, his entire empire would belong to me. The purchase had been complex, executed through a series of shell companies to hide my involvement. Charles was so convinced of his own importance that he never bothered to research who was really buying his company. He just saw the generous offer and signed the papers, proud that he'd negotiated what he thought was a good deal. My phone buzzed quietly. A message from my CFO. "Everything's set for tomorrow's announcement. 9 a.m. sharp." I smiled, remembering what Margaret had taught me years ago. The best revenge isn't serving a cold dish. It's serving it piping hot. Right from the kitchen they tried to trap you in. "What are you smirking about?" Eleanor demanded, noticing my expression. "Nothing," I replied, "just thinking about tomorrow." "Oh right, another exciting day at your little office job." Sophie laughed. "While we're having brunch at the club, you'll be answering phones or whatever it is you do." Victoria joined in. "Remember when you actually thought you could run a business?" Thank goodness, Mother stepped in and stopped that nonsense. I caught Eleanor's satisfied smile and felt a familiar surge of cold anger. She had done her best to crush my dreams, thinking she was protecting her daughter's positions in society. Instead, she had pushed me to build something far greater than she could imagine. The dining room wall held a large TV, currently showing the financial news on mute. Charles liked to keep an eye on the markets even during holidays. I checked my watch. In 14 hours, that same TV would announce the biggest business story of the year: the acquisition of Burton Enterprises by Phoenix Capital. But the real story wouldn't be the acquisition. It would be the revelation that Phoenix Capital's founder and CEO was the same stepdaughter they had banished to the kitchen. The same failure they had mocked for years was about to become their boss. As if reading my thoughts, Charles raised his glass in another self-congratulatory toast. "To Burton Enterprises. May we continue to show the world what real success looks like." I lifted my water glass slightly, hiding my smile. "To tomorrow," I said quietly, "and to learning where everyone truly belongs." They clinked their crystal glasses, never noticing my private amusement. In the kitchen, the oven timer chimed, counting down the hours until their perfectly ordered world turned upside down. Tomorrow, they would learn that the real power wasn't in their dining room. It had been in their kitchen all along, quietly waiting for the right moment to emerge. And I intended to make that moment unforgettable. I arrived at Phoenix Capital's headquarters at 8 a.m. sharp the next morning. The gleaming 60-story building in downtown Manhattan, which I owned, seemed to shine especially bright today. The security guard nodded respectfully as I walked through the lobby, where Phoenix Capital Group was emblazoned in elegant gold letters. My step-family would be at their usual Friday brunch right now, probably still laughing about making me serve them yesterday. The thought made me smile as I stepped into my private elevator. "Good morning, Miss Bennett." My assistant Kate greeted me as I entered the executive floor. "Everything's prepared for the 9 a.m. announcement. The press is already gathering in the lobby." "And Burton Enterprises?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Mr. Burton arrived at his office 10 minutes ago. According to our sources, he's planning to announce the sale to his employees at 9:30, after our press release." I smiled. He still has no idea who bought his company, does he? No, Kate grinned. He's been bragging about negotiating such a good deal. Your stepsisters have been posting on social media all morning about their father's brilliant business acumen. I settled behind my desk, looking out over the city. Are the new signs ready? Yes. The crews are waiting for your signal to replace all Burton Enterprises' signage with Phoenix Capital branding, including the one on their building. The one their precious brunch club overlooked. Perfect. At 8:55, my phone buzzed with a message from Victoria. Enjoying your little office job? We're having mimosas at the club. The view of Daddy's building is particularly beautiful today. I didn't respond. In 5 minutes, that view would change dramatically. At exactly 9 a.m., Kate patched the press release through to all major networks. I turned on the TV in my office, watching as the announcement scrolled across the bottom of the screen. BUREAKING. Phoenix Capital acquires Burton Enterprises in $4.2 billion deal. Mysterious CEO finally revealed. My phone exploded. First was Charles, his name flashing frantically on my screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then Eleanor. Then Victoria. Then Sophia. I watched through my office window as the crew began removing the Burton Enterprises sign from the building across the street. Within minutes, Phoenix Capital Group would take its place. Ms. Bennett? Kate's voice came through the intercom. Your stepfather is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about coming up. Let him wait 10 minutes, I replied. Let him watch the sign change first. Those 10 minutes were delicious. I imagined Charles in the lobby, watching helplessly as his name was literally replaced by mine. My phone continued to buzz with increasingly frantic messages. Victoria. What's happening? Daddy's building. Sophia. Turn on the news now. Eleanor. This must be some mistake. Finally, I nodded to Kate. Send him up. And when my stepmother and stepsisters arrive, which should be any minute, send them up too. Charles burst into my office like a storm, his face red with rage. He stopped short when he saw me seated behind the massive desk, the city skyline behind me. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. Good morning, Charles, I said calmly. I trust you've seen the news. You're behind Phoenix Capital? This is impossible. Actually, it's quite possible. I've owned Phoenix Capital since its inception, just like I now own Burton Enterprises. He staggered slightly, gripping the back of a chair. But the buyer, they said it was a shell company? I smiled. Several, actually, all leading back to me. You should really read the fine print more carefully, Charles. The door burst open again. Eleanor, Victoria, and Sophia rushed in, still in their brunch clothes. They froze when they saw me. What is she doing here? Eleanor demanded. Charles, what's going on? Allow me to explain. I stood up, enjoying their confusion. Phoenix Capital has acquired Burton Enterprises. All assets, properties, and subsidiaries now belong to my company, including, I gestured to the window, where the new sign was being unveiled, that building you were admiring at brunch. This is a joke, Victoria sputtered. You work in some tiny office. You're nothing. Actually, I pressed a button on my desk, bringing up screens showing Phoenix Capital's holdings around the world. I'm the founder and CEO of one of the largest investment firms in the country. That tiny office you imagined. It's this building, the entire building. Eleanor sank into a chair, her perfect composure cracking. But how? Remember when you cut off my college tuition? Forced me to drop out. I walked around the desk slowly. You thought you were putting me in my place. Instead, you pushed me to build all of this. While you were busy maintaining appearances, I was learning how to create real power. You can't do this to us, Sophia whispered. We're family. Family. I laughed softly. Was it family when you made me sit in the kitchen yesterday? When you mocked my little office job? When you treated me like a servant? Charles found his voice again. I'll fight this. I'll call my lawyers. Your lawyers now work for me. I cut him off. Just like everyone else at Burton Enterprises. The sale is complete. The contracts are signed. It's over, Charles. What do you want? Eleanor asked, her voice shaking. Money? Position? Name your price. I sat back down at my desk, every inch the CEO they never believed I could be. I want you to understand something. Success isn't about which room you sit in at Thanksgiving. It's about what you build while others are busy looking down on you. I pressed another button, and security appeared at the door. Now I have a board meeting to attend. We'll be discussing the future of Burton Enterprises, or rather, its new identity as a Phoenix Capital subsidiary. You're destroying everything we built, Charles protested weakly. No, I corrected him. I'm building something better. Something real. Unlike the facade you've maintained all these years. As security began escorting them out, I called after them. Oh, and one more thing. Next Thanksgiving, I'll be eating in the dining room. In fact, I own the house now too. The door closed behind them, leaving me alone in my office. Through the window, I could see my name shining on what used to be Burton Enterprises headquarters. The view from their brunch club would never be the same. My phone buzzed one final time, a message from my mentor, Margaret. I just saw the news. Well done. The kitchen taught you well. I smiled, remembering all those holidays spent in the kitchen, listening and learning while they underestimated me. They had thought they were putting me in my place. They never realized they were giving me the perfect vantage point to plan their downfall. Now they knew exactly where I belonged, not in their kitchen, but in the CEO's office of the empire I had built. The aftermath of my takeover sent shockwaves through both the business world and my step-family's precious social circle. While financial newspapers praised Phoenix Capital's strategic acquisition, the gossip columns buzzed with an even juicier story. How the kitchen-banished stepdaughter had outmaneuvered them all. A week after the announcement, I sat in my office reviewing the changes we'd implemented at Burton Enterprises. The company was a mess of inefficiencies and vanity projects, just as I'd suspected. Charles had been more concerned with maintaining appearances than actual business management. Ms. Bennett? Kate's voice came through the intercom. Victoria and Sophia are here. They don't have an appointment, but I smiled slightly. Send them up. My stepsisters looked different now, less polished, more desperate. Their designer clothes seemed like costumes rather than armor. The country club canceled our memberships, Victoria blurted out before I could speak. All our friends are avoiding us. Tragic, I replied dryly. Perhaps you can spend more time in the kitchen. Sophia stepped forward. We know we treated you terribly. We're sorry. But please, you have to help us. Mother hasn't stopped crying since last week. Have to? I raised an eyebrow. I don't have to do anything. That's what real power means. What do you want? Victoria demanded. Revenge? Is that it? You've humiliated us, destroyed Daddy's company. First, I cut her off. I saved the company. your father was running it into the ground. Second, this isn't about revenge. It's about business. And third, I stood up, walked to the window. I'm about to offer you something you don't deserve, a chance. They exchanged confused looks. A chance? Sophia asked. Yes, the same chance I had when your mother cut off my tuition. A chance to learn what real work means. I handed them each a folder. These are job offers. Entry-level positions in different divisions of Phoenix Capital. Not Burton Enterprises, you need to earn your way there. Real jobs, with real responsibilities and real consequences if you fail. Victoria opened her folder, her face paling. Junior analyst? But we don't know anything about finance. Exactly. You'll start at the bottom, just like I did. You'll learn every aspect of the business, work your way up based on merit, not family connections. And if we refuse, Sophia asked quietly, then you can join your father in early retirement. I hear he spends his days staring at the building that used to have his name on it. They sat silent for a moment, reality finally sinking in. Why give us a chance at all? Victoria finally asked. After everything we did, I sat back down at my desk. Because success isn't just about winning. It's about knowing what to do with victory once you have it. A week later, Victoria and Sophia started their new jobs. It wasn't easy. Years of privilege had left them unprepared for actual work. But surprisingly, they started to change. Victoria showed an unexpected talent for market analysis. Sophia, once she stopped trying to charm her way through life, revealed a sharp mind for strategic planning. Eleanor was a harder case. She refused to accept the new reality, spending her days writing scathing social media posts about ungrateful stepdaughters and family betrayal. I let her rant. Her social circle had already moved on, aligning themselves with the new power structure. Charles, however, surprised me. 1 month after the takeover, he asked for a meeting. I underestimated you, he said simply, sitting in what used to be his office. We all did. I've been looking at Phoenix Capital's track record. You've built something remarkable. Yes, I agreed. I have. I don't suppose. He hesitated. I don't suppose you could use an advisor? Someone who knows the old structure of Burton Enterprises. I studied him thoughtfully. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. Actually, I said, there is a position. We're restructuring the charitable foundation. It needs someone to manage community relations. Someone who knows the social landscape. Interested? He blinked in surprise. The foundation? Not the main company. You need to earn your way back, Charles. Just like your daughters. Just like I did. He nodded slowly. I understand. When can I start? 6 months later, I stood in my office, looking out at the city. Burton Enterprises had been fully integrated into Phoenix Capital, its operations streamlined and modernized. Victoria and Sophia had earned their first promotions, learning to take pride in actual achievement rather than social status. Charles had thrown himself into the foundation work, discovering a talent for connecting with community organizations. Eleanor still refused to speak to me, but that was fine. Some lessons take longer to learn than others. My phone buzzed, a message from my mentor Margaret. Saw the quarterly reports. You've turned Burton Enterprises around completely. How does it feel? I smiled, thinking about the long journey from that kitchen to this office. It feels like justice, I replied, but not the kind they expected. As if on cue, Victoria knocked on my door. She looked different now, sharper, more focused, the entitled princess replaced by someone who was learning to earn her place. The analysis you asked for, she said, handing me a folder. I double-checked all the numbers myself. I glanced through it. The work was solid, thorough. "Good job," I said. "Keep this up. You might make senior analyst ahead of schedule." She turned to leave, then paused. "Madeleine? About Thanksgiving." "Yes? We're having it at my place this year. A real family dinner. Would you come? Not to serve, but to eat with us, as equals." I looked at my stepsister, really looked at her, and saw something new in her eyes. Understanding, respect, maybe even a hint of genuine remorse. "I'll think about it," I said. After she left, I walked to my private kitchen. Yes, I had one installed in my office suite. But this kitchen was different. This one had a plaque on the wall, a quote from Margaret that I read every morning. "Remember where you started, but never forget how far you've come." I ran my fingers over the words, thinking about power and kitchens and family and justice. About how sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemies, but in teaching them to be better. The view from my office now included both Phoenix Capitol towers, their names shining bright against the sky. But more importantly, it included a future where success wasn't about which room you sat in, but what you built while others weren't watching. And I had built something remarkable indeed. That Thanksgiving, I did go to Victoria's dinner, not as the banished stepdaughter, not as the vengeful CEO, but as someone who had learned that true power isn't about where you sit. It's about having the strength to offer others the same chance you had to rise, even if they once tried to keep you in the kitchen. After all, that's where the best lessons are often learned.